Have you ever had a neighbor so entitled that you start imagining turning your peaceful lawn into a battlefield? I thought I'd lost my mind the day Linda Foxley showed me just how far human entitlement could go. I'm Daniel Reed, average guy. Average neighborhood, quiet life. Saturday mornings were sacred, coffee in hand, soft sunlight on the lawn, and the sound of the sprinklers dancing over my daisies. That was my world. Until Linda arrived. Linda wasn't loud or obnoxious in the traditional sense. She didn't play blaring music, never parked on my lawn, and her dog didn't bark incessantly, but she had one little habit that became my nightmare. Every day, exactly 3:15 p.m., she would march across my yard like she owned it, not along the sidewalk, not near the edges, right through the center, diagonally, like she was in a race. Phone glued to her ear, yoga pants hugging her legs, little dog trotting behind, probably wondering why humans were so weird about grass. At first, I tried to rationalize it. It's just grass, let it go, maybe she doesn't notice. But then came the path, a faint trail, right through the daisies, showing the exact path she preferred, my beautiful lawn. Crushed under her obsession with saving a few seconds. One day, I grabbed a stopwatch, stood behind my curtains like some paranoid spy and timed her march. The result? 4 seconds saved, 4 seconds, at the cost of my sanity and half of my spring flowers. I tried politeness first. I caught her mid-step one afternoon, heart racing, palms sweaty, trying to sound calm but firm. Hey Linda, mind using the sidewalk? I'm trying to get the grass to grow. She barely lifted her gaze over her sunglasses. Oh come on Daniel, it's just grass, this way's faster. And she continued, mobile glued to her ear, dog trotting happily, leaving me in the dust literally. The next day, I decided to escalate. I bought a cheerful little sign, a bright yellow board with a cartoon frog that waved and said, please keep off the grass. I planted it proudly along her route, imagining her seeing it and thinking, oh, maybe I should walk around. The next morning, gone, snapped in half, stuffed into her trash bin. This was no longer negligence. This was deliberate, and at that moment I realized politeness wasn't just ineffective, it was futile. By the end of the week, I had reached the first stage of my mental breaking point. The flowers were flattened, the grass browned in diagonal stripes, and I found myself pacing behind the curtains, calculating exactly how to defend what was mine. It was time to stop imagining and start planning. So if polite requests and friendly signs didn't work, I figured I'd try a fence, not a fortress, just a decorative 1-foot border around the path she adored so much. The next day, 3:15 sharp, she arrived. She paused, maybe noticed the fence, but only for half a second, and then with effortless grace, swung her leg over like an Olympic hurdler. I sank into the couch, mouth open, my fence, my tiny symbolic boundary completely ignored. That's when I tried bureaucracy, HOA, photos, timestamps, emails. Detailed, polite, professional, their response. We encourage friendly dialogue between neighbors. Good luck, buddy, you're on your own. Weeks passed. My once perfect lawn became a worn path. My anxiety grew with every stomped daisy and crushed tulip. My friend Greg, sensing my desperation, offered advice. Man, just get a big dog. I laughed bitterly. With this HOA, they'd fine me for harboring a dangerous animal before the leash was even on. Motion-activated sprinklers. Tried that, result, water waste violation. I was out of peaceful options. Then, one sleepless night at 2:03 a.m., while doom scrolling YouTube, I saw it, a holy festival video, bright pinks, electric blues, radiant yellows, harmless powders flying everywhere, impossible to ignore, unforgettable, and suddenly my plan crystallized. What if my lawn could fight back? I ordered 6 pressure-triggered powder puffers, non-toxic, biodegradable, cornstarch-filled, safe but humiliatingly effective. Rick, my landscaper, came by the next morning. I told him we were aerating the soil. In reality, we were setting rainbow landmines along Linda's cherished shortcut. Every puffer loaded, every puffer hidden. Target, 3:15 p.m. sharp. I spent the day pacing, imagining the chaos. My heart raced. Could this actually work? Or would I just end up with fines, angry HOA letters, and a ruined reputation? Either way, I was ready to finally reclaim my lawn. The day of reckoning arrived. I sat behind the blinds, coffee trembling in my hand, heart hammering like a drum. Then she appeared, visor on, phone in hand, dog at her side, oblivious, entitled, doomed. Step 1. Hot pink powder exploded in her path. Step 2. Whoosh. Electric blue puff enveloped her legs. Step 3. Neon green splashed across her yoga pants. She froze. Coughing, flailing, dog barking. By the 4th puff, she looked like a tropical bird that had exploded into color. Then she saw me, my eyes peeking from behind the blinds. I may have laughed a little. 2 minutes later, bang, 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 on my Front door, I opened it. She was standing there, rainbow smoke trailing behind her like a parade float. Daniel Reed. Your lawn attacked me. She shrieked. I blinked innocently. Linda. Did you fight a rainbow? She did not laugh. Then came the fallout. HOA letter number 1, public nuisance. HOA letter number 2, unauthorized soil devices. HOA letter number 3, non-uniform lawn color. Police came, surveyed the scene, shrugged. Not illegal, one officer said, but maybe. Remove them before a kid steps on one. I paid a few fines, dug out the powder traps, mowed the evidence away, but peace returned. Linda now uses the sidewalk. The dog does too. My daisies finally got a break. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it expensive? Yes. Was it worth it? Every single neon-colored penny. Sometimes the only language entitlement understands is humiliation served with style, not shouting, not fighting, just a well-timed splash of 6 colors, and sometimes that's all it takes to win, if you enjoyed watching my Rainbow Revenge saga. Don't forget to smash that like button, it really helps me keep sharing these wild stories, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss my next crazy story time. I've got plenty more adventures, misadventures, and neighborly chaos coming your way. Also, check out the other videos on my channel. You never know which story might inspire your own petty genius next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. What would you do if one morning someone showed up at your doorstep with a stranger, claiming your house was theirs to sell? Most people would panic. I didn't. I recorded everything. The gravel crunched under the tires of a glossy black SUV as it rolled to a stop in front of my secluded cabin. The sun had barely risen over the pine trees, painting the misty woods in a golden hue. I stood on the porch with a steaming cup of black coffee in hand, trying to enjoy the silence. That silence shattered the moment I saw her step out, Clara Watkins, the self-proclaimed queen of the Homeowners Association, a woman whose smile was sharper than a hunting knife and whose handshake felt like a contract you didn't remember signing. Today, she wasn't alone. A tall man in a gray blazer climbed out of the passenger seat, clutching a clipboard like it was a lifeline. Clara pointed at my cabin with her phone still in hand and said, "This is the property I told you about. Perfect spot for the market." My fingers tightened around the coffee mug. What did she just say? My cabin, my retreat, my father's legacy. I had never listed it for sale. My name was still fresh on the deed I'd renewed last spring. The man frowned, adjusting his glasses. "So the owner is inside?" he asked. Clara gave a dismissive wave. "Oh, don't worry about him. He won't be a problem. I run this neighborhood." That was the first red flag and the last straw. I set my coffee down and straightened up. My dog, a loyal shepherd mix named Scout, started to growl softly beside me, ears pricked. He sensed the tension in my jaw before I even moved. They started walking toward the gate as if they already owned the place. The realtor looked uneasy, like he'd been promised an easy listing but now smelled trouble. Clara raised her voice. "Unlock the gate, Mr. Walker. We have a showing scheduled." I didn't shout back. I didn't argue. Instead, I walked down to the gate, pulled the rusty padlock, and snapped a heavy chain across it with a deliberate click. Then I hammered a freshly painted sign onto the fence. "Private property not for sale." The sound of the hammer echoed through the trees. Clara's face turned a shade of crimson that could shame a ripe tomato. "You can't do this," she screamed, rattling the gate with both hands. "I've already told people this cabin is available. You'll regret this." The realtor stepped back, cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Ma'am, are you sure this is your listing? Because this doesn't feel right." Clara ignored him, locking her hawk-like eyes on me. "I'm part of the HOA, Mr. Walker, and if I say this cabin is for sale, it's for sale." That made me laugh low, quiet, the kind of laugh that warns the storm is just beginning. I stepped closer to the gate until only the cold metal separated us. "Then you're about to find out," I said, my voice steady, "how wrong you are." I pulled out my phone and started recording, the red light glowing like a warning flare. The camera faced her flushed, furious face. "This woman," I said loud enough for the realtor to hear, "is trying to sell my home without my permission." The realtor's jaw slackened. "Wait, you're the owner?" he asked. "Of course I'm the owner," I replied, reaching into my jacket pocket. I pulled out a clear plastic sleeve with the original deed tucked safely inside. "And here's the proof." The man stared at the document, then at Clara, his expression now a cocktail of confusion and dawning panic. "Ma'am, you signed authorization papers for this." Clara's lips twitched. Her voice came out sharp but shaky. It will be mine. This land falls under HOA control. He doesn't belong here." I took a slow step back, letting the tension stretch like a drawn bowstring. "Funny thing about that," I said. "This cabin was built 20 years before your precious HOA even existed. Your papers mean nothing here." The realtor muttered under his breath, This could get me fired." His grip on the clipboard loosened. He turned, half ready to leave, but Clara wasn't the type to back off. Her hand flew to her phone, thumbs tapping furiously. "You'll see," she hissed, her voice rising like steam from boiling water. "I have authority here. I'll have the police here in minutes." I didn't flinch. I'd seen bigger threats in darker places. What she didn't know was that the last time someone called the cops on me, the responding officer was an old army buddy. His number still on my speed dial. As the first birds began to stir in the branches above, I knew this wasn't going to end with a simple argument at the gate. Clara had just declared war. 15 minutes later, the peaceful forest road echoed with the low hum of engines and the flash of red and blue lights cutting through the morning haze. Two patrol cars rolled to a stop behind Clara's SUV. The birds that had just started singing went silent again. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. Clara straightened her blazer like a queen greeting her guards. The realtor had already retreated to the far side of the driveway, pale and fidgeting, his clipboard now tucked under his arm like a useless shield. "Officers, over here!" Clara shouted, her voice carrying a strange blend of panic and command. She pointed at me through the locked gate like a schoolteacher scolding a child. "This man is trespassing on HOA property. He's refusing to leave. I want him removed immediately." One of the officers, a tall man with a square jaw and mirrored sunglasses, glanced from her to me. His partner, shorter with a weathered face, scanned the cabin behind me. "Trespassing?" the tall one asked, his tone skeptical. "He's standing on the porch of that house." Clara's voice pitched higher. "Yes. But he's not supposed to be here. This property has been listed for sale through my realtor. He's lying about ownership." She shoved her phone toward them, the screen flashing some hastily cobbled together documents. I could see from 10 feet away the formatting was sloppy, at best a bad PDF printout that might fool a gullible buyer, but not a seasoned cop. I rested my hands on the fence, calm as a monk, and pulled out my own folder. "Officers," I said, handing it through the bars, "this property has been mine for 15 years. Bought it in cash, no mortgage, no HOA contracts, no legal ties to her or anyone she claims to represent." The taller officer flipped through the county-sealed pages, his brow furrowed. He looked up at Clara with a sharper gaze now. "Ma'am, these records come straight from the clerk's office. They prove he owns this cabin, free and clear. Do you have any legal proof that says otherwise?" Clara's mouth opened, but what came out was nothing but air. Her fingers twitched around her phone. He must have faked those papers. He's lying." The shorter officer snorted under his breath, loud enough for all of us to hear. "So now the county clerk is part of his conspiracy? That's a new one." Color drained from Clara's face, but she pressed on, stubborn as a wasp trapped in a jar. "Fine. If you won't arrest him for trespassing, I'll press charges for harassment." He threatened me. I smiled, the slow, deliberate kind that means someone just stepped into their own trap. I held up my phone, still recording, and tapped the screen. Clara's own voice echoed from the speaker. "If I say this cabin is for sale, it's for sale." The officers both turned toward her. One arched an eyebrow. "You want to rethink that statement, ma'am?" Clara reached out to grab the phone, but the taller officer stepped between us. "Ma'am, stay right there. We're going to need to see some ID." She fumbled in her bag, muttering under her breath as the red flush on her neck spread to her ears. The officer radioed her details in. The reply came crackling back a moment later. "Subject has prior complaints of fraud and harassment in 2 neighboring counties." The taller cop's jaw tightened. "So this isn't your first time pulling something like this?" Clara's voice wavered now, the sharp edges of her confidence cracking. "Those complaints were lies. People misunderstood me. I was only trying to help this neighborhood." I crossed my arms and tilted my head. "By selling homes that don't belong to you." Her mask slipped entirely then, and her voice snapped like dry twigs underfoot. "Nobody takes care of this place the way I do. You barely even use that cabin. I keep the property values high. People trust me." The officer cut her off. "Ma'am, impersonating a property owner, filing fake listings, and attempting to sell real estate you don't own, those are felonies. You're not going anywhere." Her hands fluttered like trapped birds. No, you don't understand. I have connections. The HOA board will back me up. They promised, but I had been ready for that line. Slowly, I pulled out a second phone from my jacket. I had set up a small camera at the gate the night before, just in case her antics escalated. I pressed play, and the recording showed her earlier that morning, telling the realtor, "This is the property I told you about, perfect for the market." The officer didn't hesitate. His voice was steady, cold. "Ma'am, turn around, hands behind your back." For the first time that morning, Clara went silent. The metallic click of handcuffs broke the forest stillness, but deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. People like Clara never act alone. The cuffs had barely clicked around Clara's wrists when the low growl of another engine crept up the gravel road. I knew that sound. It wasn't law enforcement, it was heavier, slower. A silver SUV appeared between the pines. It stinted. Windows reflecting the flashing patrol lights. Out stepped three figures. Two men in dark suits and a woman carrying a leather briefcase. HOA board members. I recognized their faces from the few mandatory meetings I had reluctantly attended before. Realizing they thrived on intimidation and vague bylaws, Clara straightened in the back seat of the patrol car the moment she saw them. Her voice, hoarse from shouting, surged with sudden triumph. There. There they are. Tell them. Tell these officers I had full authority to act on behalf of the HOA. We were selling this property for the good of the neighborhood. The board members exchanged quick glances, their expressions tight, cautious. The taller man, thin as a rake with a nervous twitch in his jaw, muttered, "She actually went through with it." The woman with the briefcase sighed and rubbed her forehead. "We told her not to push this far." The taller officer caught that, his head snapping toward them like a hawk spotting prey. "So you did know something about this scheme?" Silence. The three of them stood frozen, the weight of my recording phone's red light reflecting in their eyes. That little red glow was more powerful than any badge here. It was truth, live and undeniable. I stepped forward, still calm, still holding the fence between us like a stage curtain. "Don't bother denying it. Every word you say is going on this file. Every lie, every deal, every false promise you made." The shorter man, the one with the expensive watch and the politician's fake smile, finally spoke, his voice smooth like oil on a cold pan. "Mr. Walker, let's not escalate this unnecessarily. This is all a misunderstanding. Clara may have overstepped from the patrol car." Clara exploded. "Overstepped? You promised me you'd back me up. You said once it's sold, we'd split the profit and fix the neighborhood's budget." Her words hung in the air like smoke, staining everything they touched. The officers froze, the board members stiffened, and for the first time, the entire scheme cracked open in full daylight. The woman with the briefcase hissed, "Clara, stop talking." Too late. The damage was done. One officer turned to me, whispering, "Just loud enough for them to hear. You've got them cornered." I nodded slowly. "Not cornered yet," I said, "just exposed." Clara thrashed in the back seat, slamming her shoulder against the window. "You cowards! Don't leave me out to dry. We did this together. For the HOA. For the community." The taller officer leaned on the open door of the patrol car, his voice now edged with iron. "Ma'am, what you just admitted is conspiracy to commit fraud." The shorter board member tried again, voice lowering into something between a plea and a threat. "If that recording gets out, Mr. Walker, it will ruin property values across this entire region. People won't trust the HOA again. Everyone's investments will suffer, including yours." I couldn't help but laugh, not loud, but enough for the camera to catch it. "You've been ruining this neighborhood long before I pressed record." "This," I said, waving my phone, "is just the first time someone fought back." The woman with the briefcase stepped forward now, her expression tightening into something almost predatory. "You can't release that footage without consent." "That's illegal." I raised my brows. "Illegal, like breaking into private property and selling it without permission." She said nothing. The officers exchanged a glance, the kind that meant this was getting bigger than a simple arrest. One of them murmured into his radio, likely requesting backup or a detective. The forest felt colder suddenly, though the sun was climbing higher. The realtor, who had been silent this whole time, leaned against his car looking like a ghost. His career was dangling by a thread, and he knew it. "Tell me something," I said to the board members. "How many other houses were you planning to list like this? How many other owners didn't even know they were next?" The shorter man's fake smile cracked, his lips twitching. The woman clutched her briefcase tighter. For the first time that day, it wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who had been bullied by their little empire of fines, fake fees, and fear. The taller officer cleared his throat. "We're going to need to take statements from all of you." The board members shifted uncomfortably, whispering among themselves like rats cornered in their own nest. Clara was still shouting from the back seat, "Don't you dare back down now. We can still fix this." But the truth had already started spreading, and I had only just begun. The morning air was thick with tension. Clara's shrieks from the back of the patrol car echoed through the pines, a desperate symphony of lies unraveling. Her voice, once commanding and sharp, now carried only fear and frustration. "You can't do this. The HOA board will clear my name. You don't understand." The taller officer shook his head, his jaw tight. "Ma'am, the only thing you've been protecting is your ego." His tone left no room for argument. I stood there calm, observing the chaos I had orchestrated with patience and precision. My phone still recorded, the glowing red light catching the worried expressions of every guilty party. Clara had just admitted 2 multiple offenses: impersonation, fraudulent listing, and conspiracy with the board. Every word she screamed into that microphone was a confession, and I had it all captured. The board members, once confident and smug, now looked like deer caught in headlights. Their whispered exchanges had turned into panicked stammers. One woman muttered under her breath, "We told her not to go this far." But the officers had already caught on. This was no longer a minor HOA issue, it was a criminal matter. Clara twisted in the officer's grip, trying to wrest her phone from my view. "This is a setup. You're all going to pay. You can't release that footage. The HOA will. Will." The taller officer held up his hand. "Enough. Hands behind your back." The sound of handcuffs snapping echoed like a verdict through the forest. Clara went silent for the first time that morning, the shock of reality finally settling in. The other two board members stepped back, unsure of what to do next. They knew the evidence was irrefutable. Their power, their influence, their threats, none of it could stand against the proof I held in my hand and on my phone. The red recording light was a spotlight on every lie. One officer addressed them directly. "You all were aware of these fraudulent schemes. We'll be taking statements. Cooperation now may reduce your liability. Continued resistance won't." The woman with the briefcase's face drained of color. "But if this footage goes public, property values, reputation, everything." I stepped closer, holding the phone higher so the screen faced everyone. "Exactly. Every lie, every false claim, every scam attempt, it's all recorded. Your reputation already tarnished, your power gone." And this, I tapped the play button. "This is just the beginning of accountability." Even the realtor, pale and shaking, finally realized the depth of the disaster. He had been unwittingly dragged into a scheme that could ruin his career. His lips pressed into a thin line as he avoided eye contact, silently thanking whatever luck had kept him outside the criminal spotlight for now. Clara's attempts to scream and plead were growing weaker. "This isn't over," she hissed, but her defiance sounded hollow, stripped of credibility by her own recorded words. The officers led her toward the patrol car. Every step was accompanied by her muttered curses and desperate accusations. "You'll see. The HOA will fix this. They'll make you pay." But I knew better. The board had already shown their true colors. They wouldn't intervene, not now, not ever. The HOA empire of intimidation and fake authority had collapsed under the weight of documented truth. Clara's threats were meaningless in the face of irrefutable evidence. I lowered my phone, the recording still running, and stepped back. Scout, my dog, had settled at my side again, ears perked but body relaxed. He sensed the end of the confrontation. The forest was quiet once more, but it felt different, charged, like the air after a storm. The sound of tires rolling over gravel faded, leaving behind the echo of truth triumphing over deceit. I glanced at the cabin, at the home that had almost been stolen from me by greed and manipulation. Its wooden walls gleamed in the morning sun, untouched, unshakable. This was my sanctuary, my legacy, and now, finally, no one could claim it but me. The last thing I did before putting the phones away was send a copy of the footage to a few trusted contacts and local authorities, not for revenge, not for notoriety, for justice, to make sure that no other homeowner would fall victim to such audacious fraud. As I walked back up to the porch, Scout trotting alongside, I sipped the coffee I had left untouched hours ago. The quiet forest around me felt safer, restored. And though the HOA drama would likely continue in whispers and rumors, their power had been broken, their lies exposed, and my home finally secure. Sometimes justice isn't swift. Sometimes it's slow, deliberate, and requires patience. But when it arrives, it leaves a mark, a warning, a story worth recording. And today, justice had arrived at my front gate.